In today's show, we're going to talk about Microsoft Flow. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive into one of my favorite flows I've ever built and walk you through the entire thing. Fine, I've been putting this off for like a year, but what the flow does, it takes a contact on our website, turns it into an email, then the email gets the user's approval, and then if the user approves, then it adds them to our mailing list. And so doing that, we're going to talk about some string options, we're going to talk about email with options, we're going to talk about terminate, and just a whole bunch of little things that I've wanted to teach you guys about Flow for a really long time because you've been asking, and I'm just like, this is hard stuff to teach, but we're going to do it today. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911, those guys. And today we're going to talk about Flow on the show. I don't know, rhyming something, joke, ha ha ha. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of solve two big things I've wanted to cover for over a year now. One is I'm going to walk you through the automated flow that gets generated when every time someone goes to our website and fills out our contact form, right? Because all that happens with those is they turn into emails. And so I wanted to productively put those emails into the system. And so I'm going to walk you through how that whole process works and show you all the pieces of that, which will give me a chance to cover email with options, terminate, and a couple other little things about Flow that I want to kind of pass along. But the most complicated thing in that flow is the string manipulation. And so in there, I do some wacky shenanigans with strings. And so what we're going to do is after I've laid out the whole flow and everybody goes, okay, I got it. Then we're going to backtrack and we're going to spend a little bit of time just going through some of the different string manipulation pieces with you guys so you understand what is possible through flow expressions. And I promise I will get frustrated and annoyed through that process because, well, let's face it, string manipulation is annoying, but a very necessary evil often. So with all that said, let's just switch over to my desktop, take a look at what this process looks like, and kind of go from there. Oh yeah, and if you're thinking, wait, I've seen this demo before, you haven't, right? So some of the conferences and some of my training classes, I've talked a little bit about this, but this is the first time I'm going to go through all the pieces. We are going to learn new things around email with options and terminate, and then all the string stuff. So even if you're thinking you've seen this before, I promise you haven't. Anyway, with all that said, let's switch over to my desktop. Okay, so we're going to start here on my desktop. We're going to start from Power Apps 911. And the reason for that is because probably 95% of the leads we get are people who roll up this website. They go, this is really cool. Oh, yeah, there's that good looking Shane guy. And they say, oh, yeah, I want to contact these people. And so they come in here and they're like, hey, Chewy. And so then they're like, all right, and then my email address is, and I'm going to use my personal address. So you guys, don't email my personal address. How rude of you, but I don't care. But so we're going to do that. And so then it's like, all right, subject. And so then they just type in, I need to know why you are so lazy. Please tell me. And so then that's, what Chewy is sending to me, which is really odd because Chewy is right over there taking a nap right now. So anyway, then they're going to press send. They get this little green message at the back. And because of our website provider, which is Wix, we basically just get an email from this. It doesn't go into a database. It doesn't go into an Excel file we can download. It literally just sends us an email with what you filled out here, which is great for simplicity's sake, but really annoying when you're trying to run an actual business. So what happens is we'll go over here to my email real quick, and I'm going to open up the email that we get so you can see what we see. And so here you can see the email address that we get, right? So something comes from this no reply at crm.wix.com. It goes to one of our internal email addresses, and we just get this body. And it's just an HTML formatted body. So it's not even really convenient for me to break apart. But that's what we get. And so when we get that, let's go over and see what happens on the flow side. So if we go to my flow, which is right here, as you can see, when a new email arrives from that address, and that's all I configured here, was just the from, because anytime I get an email from them, it's one of you guys reaching out to us. So there it is from there. So that's my trigger in Flow. Remember your flows, you need a trigger. So then what happens is I have to do all of these steps, and this is what we're going to come back to after we get through the whole flow. But I run all of these different steps to take the body of the email, because the body comes in with the big block of text. And so I got to strip out all the HTML tags, all the extra formatting. So I really am just trying to get out of there the name of the person, the email address of that person. That's it. That's all I want to capture out of there. Because once I strip out the name and the email here, then what I'm going to do, we're going to ignore all of this for the moment, is I send an email back to the user. So I send an email with options to the user. And so with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, thanks for contacting us, blah, 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 blah. But then at the bottom, what it says is, hey, you, can we add you to our mailing list, right? I hate when companies just automatically put you on their mailing list. So here you're going to see is, I asked them. And so this is what we call an email with options. And if we go and look at my personal email now, give me a second, I'll show you that. So here in my personal email, you're going to see, look, there's all the blah, blah, blah. And then down here, hey, Chewy, may we add you to our mailing list, right? We barely send emails once a month, more like once a quarter, but whatever. But can we put you on our mailing list? Yes or no? And if Chewy clicks either one of these buttons, boop, then the flow takes off and runs from there. So all Chewy has to do is click on one of these buttons. So then let's go back over here. So what does that look like? So then over here, you're going to see, we're going to ignore the terminate for a second too, is there's a condition. And the condition just says, hey, if the selected option is equal yes, so if Chewy clicked the yes button, then we are going to add Chewy to our subscribed MailChimp mailing list, right? Just programmatically, it just hits the API, magic, and it goes. And then because I'm a nerd, I get an email that says, hey, Chewy joined the mailing list, pretty cool use of flow. Like I've been getting the same email for like 2 years now, 10 times a week. It's hilarious to me, but whatever. It makes me happy. So this is the process. If they say no, then all we do is I see an email that says boo, which is fine. But it's just kind of, once again, I just amusing myself. And really, this is remnants of the testing process I just never took out. I'm lazy. Like Chewy asked about. So that's the process, though. Now, what's really neat here is a couple things. And so one is this terminate. And so what really happens with people is either people click this yes button, and they usually do it almost right away, or they never do anything. Very rarely does someone click the no button, which is fair. So one of the things that you need to know about flow, if you did not already know, is that a flow only can run for 30 days. So when they get the email, right, when the email triggers back out, they have 30 days to respond to that flow. And so if they don't press yes or no at the end of that flow, then the flow explodes like, I don't know what to do. And it just fails. So what was happening was because, a portion of the people never click anything. What was happening there was that it was coming through and I was just seeing all these failures. And so I didn't ever know if it was a failure because it timed out or if it was a failure because they actually had failed. So what I did was I added this terminate step. And I said, hey, run this terminate step and set the status to canceled. Now, if you've got a keen eye, you might notice that there's little red dotted lines right here. So what this is really important to understand, this is a great feature that not enough people use, is there is a feature here called configure run after. And so the configure run after step, by default on everything, is this: if the previous step was successful, do this. Well, here I want a different behavior. I want this terminate step to run if the flow times out, right? So if this step right here times out, then this runs and it sets it to cancel. So then that way I have successful flows, I have canceled flows, and then the only ones that are failures are actual flows that break because something was wrong. So then it's important to understand though with this cancel step, so what I then have to do is I need to go the step after it, right? Because this isn't going to run every time, just if a flow sits there for 30 days. So then this condition also has a configure run after. And this one only runs if this step was skipped. And this step would be skipped if someone responded to send an email with options in less than 30 days. That's how this works, kids, right? So this is a great tool if you're getting flows that are timing out, like if you guys are doing approval flows or other types of flows where you want to have a way to gracefully fall out. This is a way to do that using the terminate action. The other thing that I have done this for is in some of my customer flows, it's a very held together with bubblegum process, for better lack of way of putting it, right? Like there's so many different ways that this flow can fail. We know what all the ways are. We've educated the users not to do the things that will cause it to happen. Users don't always listen. So what I've done in their particular cases is like, say that I know that, this step up here, this one will fail if the user forgot to rename the file. All right, so then what I can do here is I'll go in, I'll be like, all right, add an action. and then set it to terminate. And then, I'm going to just set this to, it doesn't matter, failed, canceled, whatever makes sense for you. But before I run this terminate step, I will then also just have an action here for Outlook and like send an email. And so then I will send this to the person that caused this flow to trigger, and the body will basically say, hey, you forgot to rename the file, right? So I'm sending them, so yes, your flow failed, this is why it failed, and then do I need you to rerun it? Do I need, what do I need them to do? So I've added a bunch of like documentation in there. And so then the idea here was that this one would be like, hey, configure run after. And so I want this one to run if this was failed, or if it timed out, or if it skipped. Basically, if anything other than this step was successful, I want this to run. I want this one to also run because I need to end the flow now that I've sent this email. And so then I would set this one right here back to that same type of thing, configure run after, and I'd say, hey, I only want you to run if that previous step was skipped. So this is how I'm running two things. And so I use this for some, real-time feedback to some of my users and some of those really bizarre flows that I have to write, like where I'm depending on the user to do things correctly before they trigger the flow. So maybe not something you'd want to do, maybe you would, but that is something that I have had to do a few times. We're going to get this all out of here because I do not want to break my flow. We'll delete that, we'll delete that. Oh, we'll fix this. Right? This is my production flow I'm showing you guys because why wouldn't I? So there we go. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted you guys to take out of this, right? Was this whole idea of terminate. The other thing I want you to take out of here is this idea of send an email with options. And so the reason that I use this, you're like, Shane, this is kind of like approvals. It is, but approvals can only be used with people in your tenant, whereas the people filling out this contact form are not in my tenant. So for me, I couldn't use approvals. I tried in the first version of this, and it blew up every time I sent it to my personal email address. So send email with options gave me very similar behaviors, but I can send that off to anyone out there on the internet, which is what let me facilitate that. And I've used this in some other solutions I built as well, where I wanted to like ask customers if they want to do X or Y. All right, and the user options up here, so you saw a yes and a no button, right? So there's just a yes, comma, no, and that's what made the two buttons. And then the key was then down here in the condition, it's just saying, hey, the selected option, which is a dynamic content of send email with options, is equal to yes. Then we go down this path. No, we go down this path. So you could have multiple steps as well. You could have branches, all those fun things. And then add a member to the list. This is the MailChimp actions are pretty straightforward. The nice thing here as well is I didn't have to understand. Once I connected it to my MailChimp account, I then had the ability to do this without a lot of shenanigans. I didn't have to understand what was going on. I basically just filled in the blanks, and you can see there's some pieces here. I wish there was a couple other fields exposed, but they're not. And I didn't feel like messing with them, so I said, you know what? First name, last name, email address, that's enough for me. Now, one of the ways that I should fix this flow at some point, which I have not done, but I should, is the flow, if you add yourself to the mailing address or mailing list twice, then it will fail. So it turns out that there's enough people out there that have literally clicked that yes button like 4 or 5 times. They just want our mailing list so much. So every time they mail us, they say yes, and then every time it fails. So in reality, I should have some type of error checking here to see if they already exist. Maybe for a future video, but I've not put that in our production flow. I just deal with the fact that those fail and life goes on. Okay, so this is our flow, right? That was the overview. Hopefully you took a little bit out of the terminate pieces and a little bit out of the send email with options. And so then now what I want to do is go super nerd, right? So we had the easy stuff. That was fun. Now it's time for you guys to be brave, and let's just talk about some nerdy stuff. And so the nerdy stuff, let's go up here and just start at the top. And we're not going to go through all of these. Don't feel like I'm going to do that, but I want to expose you to a couple of key concepts here. And so the first one is really it's understanding like what comes through. Okay, so if we go back over here, let's go back a step. So we'll go here. And so if we go find our Chewy run history, right, which was this one. Over here when an email arrives, what I want you to do is I have to go grab the body, right? Because that's what I had to deal with. So I went down here to body. I'm like, oh my goodness, it is truly crazy HTML. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, and then I'm going to hit the end. And so that just copied that whole chunk of, or not highlighted all of it. So I'm going to hit Control C, which then copies it. And so now what I want you to do is I'm going to open up Notepad. And so now with my friend Notepad, yes, I use Notepad for way too much, but I paste it in the entire body. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. That's a lot of stuff. So then I'm going to go up here to the top. I'm going to say Control Find. I'm going to type in name and name colon, right? And say next. And so down here, we'll scroll way down here. Oh, it's thundering outside. Hopefully you don't hear that in the recording. So name colon, this is where then we should be able to go scroll. Where is it? Oh, so right here. So here you can see that the name of the person came through. So that's what I want, right? I want this person's name. And in this case, Chewy was lazy and only put in his first name, so which causes some other weirdness. We'll talk about it in a minute. But so what I'm really after here is how do I get this Chewy, which is going to be in a dynamic location every time based on all this other fun stuff. Oh, so exhausting, right? There's a whole bunch of garbage up here. I mean, hundreds or I think there's thousands of characters. So we're going to talk about our first, what do you call that? String manipulation. So we've got this in my clipboard. I'm going to go over here actually, and we're going to create a new flow. So I'm going to create an instant flow, trigger create, because I'm not worried about building that flow right now. I'm really just worried about figuring out how to do that so I can put it in my real flow. And so here I'm going to use a compose step. So if you don't use compose, it's just a great way to do some texty stuff or manipulate or whatever you need to. In this case, I am just going to paste that whole body in here. Whoa, there it is. So we're then going to go down here and be like, all right, I want a new step. But so now I can dynamically reference that. I could probably rename this, right? We'll just call this rename HTML body. Boop. There we go. So then now that I've got that, I'm going to add another compose step. Remember, I'm not trying to write the flow here. I'm trying to figure out what I need to figure out so I can then go plug it back into my real flow later. And so then now that we've got that, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to expressions. So click on expression, and then I'm going to expand the string functions. And you can see that there is a whole bunch of these things. Concat, substring, replace, to lower, starts with, trim, split. Whoa, so many things. Well, what I'm really after is this substring, because what a substring does is it lets me say, hey, I want to, only return part of an actual string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here. I'm going to start to type in substring. There it is. Hit tab, open my parentheses, and then the flow being the annoying thing that is, it is now on the way. We'll kind of click away to get that out. And so then now it's like, all right, what text do you want the substring of? And so this is where I could paste in that giant body we just copied. Woo, no thank you. Instead, I'm going to say, just use the dynamic content of the HTML body. So a much easier way for me to manipulate that text without having to have it jamming up the screen here. And so then now it's all right, what integer do you want? Oh, man, it wants a number of where I want to start. I can't just tell it I want to start at name. All right. Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in a 1 here for a second, say OK. So before we can do that, what I'm going to have to do is I got to find the string name, or like what character count it is, right? So it's like character 7,000 something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new action above this. I'm going to do another compose. Oh, that's not right. That's not right. Third time's a charm. There it is. And so for this one, we're going to go to expressions. And so instead of substring, because we need a number, we're going to have to do some type of find. Where is, index of. So they don't call it find, which is what's very common in other languages. They call it index of. And so then what text do you want to find the index of, and what do you want to search? So let's put that up here. So I want the index of outputs. And then what do I want? Oh, there's that silly thing in the way again. And so then what text do I want? I want name colon, right? You got to be careful. You can't use name here because there's other things named name, but name colon is where I want. So that looks right. Oh, but it's got to be in single quotes because when you have text inside of there, you've got to do single quotes. So we'll say OK. All right. Not feeling too bad here. So let's try this flow string demo. So we're going to say save, and then we're going to say test. and then perform the action and test and run my flow. Done. And so the body's the body, we don't care. But here, oh, look at that. So name starts at character 7,792. And so then down here you can see, no, well, we didn't do anything with that. We just got the first character trimmed out of there. So let's edit this out. Let's go down here. And now that we have a number, let's go back to this one. And so instead of 1, what I'm going to do is we want this compose to, but I'm going to rename that real quick as well. So rename this to location of name. Like that. So then now we go down here, expression, and so we'll delete the 1. We'll do dynamic content, location of name, outputs, and update, and test. Use our previous run so I don't have to click so much. All right, so then now that number is 7792 still, and so compose here. Oh, well, close. What happened? So we got the location and name, and so it went ahead and it stripped out everything for us, which is what we wanted in front of name, right? Because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to strip out all the garbage. But what happened here was I actually want Chewy, right? And so Chewy is still way down here somewhere. I don't even know. It's in there. I have a hard time finding his name. So what I did was I went back over to my notepad. I said, all right, so how many characters? I'm going to copy everything from name to Chewy. So I did a Control-C, and then I did a new. Okay, and so then I pasted this in. And we'll turn on word wrap so we don't get all this weirdness. And so then I highlighted all this. I'm like, all right, well, that's a whole bunch of characters, but this thing does, so you can see that this is line 1, column 202. So it tells me that I want to jump 202 spaces. So we'll go right here, and then we'll go back. Oh, we got an editor flow. So I went back to index of. And so instead of just straight up index of, I want the index of plus 202. Now in Power Apps, what we would have done was we would have been like plus 202, and we would have went on. That is not how flow expressions work. So with flow, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go here and we're going to use the add function. And so with the add function, then we can say add our the number we got, right? Because we were already computing that 7,700 number. So we do add the computation there, comma 202, and then we hit update. And so then now that should fix that. And because this string is built on this one, we should just be able to plow right through, right? There shouldn't be anything else for us to test. Or not, shouldn't be anything else for us to fight with. So we go down here to compose. Oh, I forgot. We lost the first character of Chewy because it was actually 201. Ugh. Which is actually the mistake that I made a lot. And honestly, when I was practicing for this video, I made that same exact mistake. And I left that in here because I wanted you guys to kind of see that this was the day that I really wrote this for the first time. I just kind of did a bunch of this. I'd like try something, get close, and then just start moving characters because I was too lazy to count. So we'll do another test, save and test. And so what we should now see is, there it is, Chewy, yay! And so then now we know that that is where his name is. And so then what I did was I just kind of did some more pattern matching. Like, oh, look. So it looks like this, this is how the name portion ends. Because what happens is you're going to see different results in my case. I might see Chewy. I might say Chewy space Young. I might see, you know, Susie Day. I can't even think of anything. Soul, right? And so, which would have 2 spaces in the middle. So I get a bunch of different things from people. And so what I basically had to do is like accept the fact that I never knew how long the name was going to be. I didn't know whether or not there would be spaces. But what I did know was that when the name was over, it would end in a span. So we could come back down here and be like, all right, so then this is the string that is name only. So I'm going to rename this one so I kind of remember. And so name, or starts with name. Yeah, I don't really have to spend so much time doing this, but it makes it easier, I think. So starts with name. And so then now I'd go down here. I'm going to throw in another compose step. Data operations. And so then here what I want is I'm going to find, oh, we don't have find. Remember, I keep wanting it to be find, but it's called index of. And so we're going to say index of. And so then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the dynamic content from starts with name. And then what I want is I want the index of the closed span tag, like that. And so then that's going to tell me how many characters into that one is the closed span. And so that one's going to be a small number, in this case, 5. And so then now we would go down here and we'll stick with our renaming thing. So find end of name. All right. And so then now we go down here and then we're, all right, last but not least, compose. And so then here we can say, all right, for this one, I want the, I want to do substring, and we're going to start at the beginning this time. So substring, and what are we going to do? So what text do we want the substring of? We want the text of the starts with name. So we'll grab that. So starts with name output. And then if we go up here, what character do I want to start with? I want to start at character 0, right? I want to start at the beginning of it. And then how many characters do I want to go? I want to go the index of that span, which was find end name. So then we'll do our dynamic content of find end name output. Say okay. And so then now let's do a save. Let's do a test. I'll be honest, I don't remember if I was supposed to start with 0 or 1. So we're going to find out together in just a moment. It was 0. I was right. Yeah. And so look at that. So we took this hot pile of garbage. Remember, there was like 100,000 characters of garbage. And we were able to get down to Chewy. And folks, that's what I want you guys to take away from this around string expressions, right? This whole idea that you should be able to go in and manipulate your way. Because if you look at this flow, so if we go back over here and do an edit, you're going to see that in reality, that's all I'm working my way through. And so here what I did, though, is I was putting them in variables. So I had not learned to use compose at that point. Compose variables, honestly, in this case, will do exactly the same thing. But I was just saving all that data, those same formulas, into variables. And so, I went and got the email address. There's where I get the first name. And then the other thing here that we will not explore now because this video is already too long, but one of the other things that I had to deal with was the way that the string manipulation for me works, because breaking off spaces, was that if you only put one name in there, so if you just put Chewy, then it would get recorded as a last name and the first name would be blank. But I know if you only put a name in there, that in reality, it should be your first name. So I wrote this condition that says, hey, if first name is blank, then set last name to first name and set last name to blank. So that was the only other little piece of this that I had to do. The other thing I will remind you guys as you start to embrace upon, writing a flow like this. This flow probably, I probably have 8 hours in it easily, right? But I didn't sit down and spend 8 hours in one day. I wrote the really simple version, right? Could I take a email, it was perfectly the way I want it, Chewy space Young, could I get that email into MailChimp? Okay. And so that was enough. I went live at that point. I started getting all these failures. I'm like, oh man, what am I getting failures for? And so then that's when I found out about the whole people only put in Chewy. So I came in here and edited the flow to add the piece around, last names and first names getting mismatched. Then, I was like, all right, that's a lot less errors. Now I'm getting more errors. Oh, those are the timeouts. So then I added the terminate step, right? And then now I'm getting the errors around people trying to add themselves multiple times. Thank you for that. But I am now, working my way through that. And so that is, what's kind of happening. So, and I need to fix that one. But what do you do? Anyway, so just remember, don't feel like you have to boil the ocean. Don't ever feel like, especially with flow, you can never get it all on the first try. So write your first flow, get it working, and then react. It's a very iterative process, but no big deal. Because the nice thing here as well is the ones that it was failing for, it wasn't failing in a way my users were seeing it. I was just seeing the failures. So I wasn't too concerned with, I wasn't breaking anything. I just wasn't getting the data I wanted. Okay, I don't know. That's a lot. Let me know what you guys think of this, right? Was this too broad, too nerdy? I struggle with the flows, right? I'm super comfortable making the Power Apps videos. Some of these flow ones, though, I'm like, I feel like this is so much. But maybe you guys consume this as fast as you consume Power Apps, and I'm just overthinking it because I'm a little slow when it comes to flow. I don't know. All right, just a reminder, if you're a subscriber, you can download this flow with all of its craziness so that you can take a look at it and you can play with it. So I will make this available as part of the downloads. If you're not a subscriber yet to our training site, go to training.powerapps911.com. There's a curated library option, and everyone who signs up there, right, they get the videos first. They can download the videos. They can download the components that come out of the videos. So like this flow and all the apps I built. They also have access to sign up for office hours. And so once a month being on a meeting with me to ask me questions. Who doesn't want to ask me questions? Yay! Okay. With all that, I also will say, thankfully, the power didn't go out. And this thunderstorm rolled through while we were recording this. So, whew. And with all that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at Power Apps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.